I'm CK. Today we've got a module from a company I haven't worked with before, ThreeTom Modular. This is their Doppio. It is an amplifier, driver, and soft knee limiter, and it's got some other dynamic controls in it also. It's supposed to allow you to set stereo inputs into the mix better on eurorack and some other things. I probably won't be using it with stereo. You can use 2 mono inputs also, or 1 mono input if that's all you got. So we'll take a look at it, put it together, put it in the rack, and see how it sounds. And I hope you enjoy the video. Here's the packaging. ThreeTom Modular Doppio, I picked it up from thonk.co.uk. QR code for a build document, which goes to ThreeTom's site. And let's look at the front panel and circuit boards first. If I can't even get a paper bag open competently, what the heck is the matter with me? So let's see, we've got a bunch of LEDs, dual amp / drive, Doppio, caffeine, which says underneath it, I can't read that, caffeine, and below it in small letters it says gain. There's volume, times 5 times 21, I believe that's a switch. Drive and limit, I believe those are switches, in A, in B, out A, out B. And then we've got this. I don't know what this is for. Maybe it's for the back. Make sense, not war. Make repairs, not trash. Certainly agree with that. Get the circuit board out. Again, acting like an animal, getting things apart. Bunch of surface mount parts already mounted. LM339, so a bunch of op amps. There's something here. This is that's TL074, another op amp or 2. Bunch of resistors and capacitors. And then these are the LEDs. More resistors and capacitors. 131, this is version 1.5C, 1.5 Charlie. Down here in the corner it says JLC, 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 JLC. I don't know whether that's people who make the board. So this is Tom for shooting, November 1st, 2023. I apologize if I mispronounced your name. And let's see what we are going to actually solder on. First we've got serial number, proudly presents, little card, gives a clean volume boost to weak signals, saturating complex stereo sounds and waveforms without mushing them up, bringing line level instruments up to eurorack levels, soft limiting of stereo signals, what makes it unique, 3 levels of gain, 1x, 5x, 21x, which is a lot, different types of drive, linear gain with hard clipping, soft clipping drive, or soft limiting, caffeine knob for adding saturation, with the separate volume control for when the saturated signal gets too loud. Coffee bean shaped indicator lights. Yeah, I'm excited by that. Here we have more stuff. Get parts tray out. Some pots, some pin headers. This will go around the LEDs to frame them so they don't bleed over into each other. I bet that's 3D printed. Yeah, that's 3D printed. Here's a little potentiometer, a little trimmer, offset A it looks like here, that's where it goes. So we'll play with that. Then we've got this little isolator too. I don't know what that's going to go on. Figure that out later. The switch. Where are the jacks? Jacks must be these other two bags. Ooh, I'm gonna switch cameras on that one because that was a discount code for a good bit of money from Thunk. So I won't let you see it. There's jacks. Oh, I left the panel nuts on, so I have to take them off myself. Wham! And then in here, we've got something. Oh, probably knobs. Oh, there goes my water heater. Got some knobs and indicators to go on the top of the knobs. These are okay knobs. They don't have set screws, they don't have metal inserts, but at least they have good indicators. So that's what we've got. Now wait for the water heater to go through its cycle, and then we'll start putting this thing together. I forgot one bag. There was a bag of screws and other hardware that I almost threw out, but I didn't. Now I'm dumping it into a tray you can't see at the moment. And I pulled up the build guide, and it is lots of pictures and excruciating detail. I shouldn't say that. It's, oh, why am I not scrolling? Just a whole lot of detail. So if this is your first kit, this will be a very good one to start with, because you will not have a problem knowing what to do next. Now I'm going to break off all the sprues without dislodging any of the surface mount components. Of course, that's always the problem when you get a board that already has surface mount components on it and you got to break the boards apart. And I typically sand off these rough spots. And let me grab a piece of sandpaper, which I just happen to have always handy. And we'll do that. Just so we don't have rough edges. You don't have to do this. Most people wouldn't care. I just care. And the first thing he would like us to do is put the pin headers on the back of this board, and we'll put the female pin headers on this board. And I'm gonna, oh, no. I thought they were gonna stay in place without me having to fuss with it, but they're not. And I'm going to put an index card there to catch them while I set it down. Now I'll solder one pin on each. I think he describes how to do this too, but I'm just going to go ahead and do what I typically do, because I think he describes it the way I typically do it, because I'm not the only one who typically does it that way. Now some of these are a little up, this one's a little up, so I will reheat that solder right there, get it to go flush, Now that's flush, that one is already flush, and this one's flush. So I'll do all the remaining pins. So now we will do the male pin headers also. And we're going to do them by putting the pin headers in their sockets. That's the power connector, that's not a pin header. And then take the other board. And he wants us to go he can't want us to go. Oh, I see what he's saying. I'm sorry, I was confused. So we're going to go like this. This makes sure that when we put them together for real, for final, they will actually fit very well. And then you can take them back apart. We're all ready to go for the future. Oh, there are two calibration trimmers. I did not see that. Are they both the same value? Yes, they are both the same value. Now we'll put the power connector. It's not shrouded. It's got a thick line for where the red line will go when we're using it. And let me get a couple of pieces of foam to lift up this end of the board so I can solder this without any undue fuss. And same thing, I'll do one pin, pick it up, check to make sure it's all flat, and it is. Okay, put the longest screw through the baffle in the LED thingus. And now we'll put that on here. Put one of the nuts on it. Take care not to scratch the board with the screw. What? I don't know how you can scratch the board with the screw, but that's okay. Oh, I see. We're not going to put a nut on that. Why did it say? No, it didn't. Okay. I jumped ahead. We want to put one of the standoffs on here instead of a screw. Making sure the baffle is square. Place the short screw. What did that? Do not skip this step. Place the short screw through the other hole in the board. What? It makes sense. So we're just going to do that. It's not going through. I think that's for the front panel. And then we'll put a standoff there. talks about. Now we're going to put all the jacks and screws, switches and so on. And I'm going to do them in the order I'm comfortable with. Oops, sorry, I forgot. I've got to take the panel nuts off. We'll speed up the cameras for that. So while we're here, we'll put the two switches in. And then this other piece of 3D printed plastic is a spacer to keep the switches positioned. Not really, oh, I see why, because he doesn't have, these are not screw threaded tops of the switches, so you can't affix them firmly with the panel nuts on the other side when you got it all together. So you got to be a little bit more careful. These are both the same, are they not? They're both 50K. So he wants us to put washers on the pots, I guess. I rarely do this step, but I will today just because. And now we're going to put the front panel on. Oops, switches got dancy. Put the front panel on. Looks good. I'm going to get my little clamp. Clamp that together. It's a little interesting. Maybe I've got that backwards. Maybe there's an indent in the baffle that I did not notice. So just something to be aware of. Potentially, I hope there's an indent. There is. I didn't see it. That's completely my fault. It's better and square that up again. Put the panel back on. Much nicer. Much nicer. Put my little clamp in place. He says, or he guides to put the panel nuts on now. I'm not going to do that. It's not the way I typically do this. I'm going to solder the components down, make sure that they're all flush with the board, so the pots are completely flush, so I can solder them with no gaps for later. I'll get that other support leg once I'm done here, and I remove the clamp. Now with the pots soldered, I will flip around again and put the panel nuts for the pots on. Where's my socket? As soon as I've got one snugged, I can take the clamp off. This is a 10mm socket wrench, which is going to work most of the time for these panel nuts. Now I'm going to shake it a little bit. A little loose down here, so I'm going to solder 2 pins on these jacks on the bottom. First making sure they're getting my clamp out again and making sure they're completely scrunched. And now I'm going to take to socket. Where's my tool? Where is it? Oh, come on. Oh, there it is. Snug those down, and that places enough tension on the board so I can solder everything else flat. And now I just solder all the other pins. Flip over on this side so I can rest those pots in the holes. I do this pretty quickly in fast motion playback. In fact, I think I'm actually going to turn the cameras off because they're about to time out anyway. So that's all soldered, and even though this is a pretty simple kit, I'm still going to, and that's the end of soldering, I'm going to go through and double check with my index card to make sure all the solder joints are good and they're not bled over. The only one you don't have to worry about is these pins here that go to the ground pins on the jack. They can be bridged. They're not, but they can be because... Oh, I did miss, see, that's why I do this. I did miss a pin. No matter how many times you build something, always a chance, so that's why we check. There, much better. Now, we're going to put things together. We're going to get the two boards together, making sure that the standoff screws go through and the pins all go through correctly, and they did, which is wonderful. Now we're going to take this, which is a back plate. Most modules don't come with back plates, and he wants us not to have it flat, interestingly enough. I don't know why he wants to do that. We're just going to use two more standoffs. I mean, I can see why you don't want it flat against the back, but it seems a little overly complex. Because most eurorack modules and most of the ones, the 100 or so I've built on this channel, there's no back on it. Nobody cares. I mean, if you had a very shallow skiff and you were worried about with a metal back and you were worried about grounding things out, I guess it would matter, but that's unlikely. And now we'll put all our knobs on so we make sure... Oh, I got to put the other speaker jack, input jack. And making sure the switches work, and they do. Knobs all fully counterclockwise, and we'll put the knobs on and theoretically try to get them lined up with each other. That's one thing I'm usually pretty bad at. Oh, and you'll notice when I'm doing this, I have my fingers on the fiber front panel, not on the circuit boards. I'm pushing against the front panel because it can take it better. You don't want to get all bendy on the circuit boards. Looks good. Now we'll put the little index caps on. Oh, got to put them the right way, don't we? Oh, I didn't get that straight. I didn't get that straight, folks. And somehow I just don't care. If I can move it with a little needle nose action, but I can't, so I don't care. It's a little off, like a half a millimeter, eighth of a millimeter. And now it's time to power it up. But we're not going to do that right now. I am going to connect the power cable, again, red stripe, to the heavy white mark on the board. And then we're going to do calibration, but we're going to do that later. So this is what it looks like. That's the front, it's the side, back, the other side, top, and the bottom. Okay, I think I may go ahead and calibrate this right now. Let me grab my little power supply. Oops, dropped my hat. Get a small patch cable, short patch cable. This is a little frequency central power supply I use for fiddling around on the desktop, on the workbench top. And we're going to power this up, make sure the LEDs come on, or something comes on. Okay, we've got LEDs. So what do we want to do? Patch output A into input B. Out A into input B. Soft clipping switch to center. Caffeine and volume knobs fully clockwise. It's highly likely that the green LED of channel B will show up. And it is just a little. It's just, I don't know what's causing it to do that, but we'll learn. Okay, so we want the offset A. We're going to turn that to make sure we're going to turn it clockwise. Clockwise should get rid of the green on B. I'm turning it counterclockwise right now, just to see what's going on. See, I don't know why it's... Okay, it's completely off, so I'm okay with that. Now we'll do second channel. Keep the same settings. Remove both patch cables. What do you mean? Oh, you mean both ends of one patch cable. Gosh, don't say both patch cables. Connect output B to input A. And we've got green, green. It's together. See, I'm not getting the exact. They're showing all LEDs on. That's not what I'm getting. I'm getting both greens, but I'm not getting everything. Now we're going to take another patch cable and he'd like us to wrap a little solder around it like so. So one end is, we're grounding the both sides of it together. Now we'll put this into input B. Put this into input B. All monitors, lights, LEDs should have gone out, except for the green LED of channel A. If the green LED of channel A is not on at this point, you got lucky and your Doppio is now ready for use. So we are ready for use now. And we'll put it in the rack and see how it works with other units. We're in the rack, and I've already got a sequence going. Let me see if I can give you a little hint of that and not forget what I'm doing here. So that's what that sounds like. Now let me switch back to where I was, and that's feeding into the caffeine. As you can see, I've got caffeination all the way down. When I start turning it up, you'll see what's happening there. So, and on the oscilloscope, let me bring the oscilloscope up. On the oscilloscope, we've got the top line is the raw signal in, and the bottom line, magenta line, is the processed one coming out of the Doppio. So let's bring it up. There we go. With halfway up, it's about the same, and then we can drive it up, and that's with multiplier at 0 and drive and limiter off. Let me go, and you'll see it's clipping a little bit according to the red lights. Let's go back down below clipping. Ignore the B. B is an echo of A if there's no B input, so we'll ignore that for right now. Let me do a multiplier. Let's multiply by 5. And as you can see, it jumped way up, and we're already kind of crunching and clipping. Let me go to 21. You can see it's leaped very high up. But it's not too crunchy. I'm going to go ahead and put drive in. Still not having much of a sonic impact. It does affect the volume level continually, of course. Now we'll put a limiter on it. And as I take the limiter, see, it's not going as high as it did before. Now it's going a lot less higher. And it doesn't clip at all with the limiter at that level. Take the limiter back out, and it goes up. Limiter back in, limiter out. So we'll go to 21, and again, it's still limiting. And then we go to drive. Again, I'm not feeling any crunchiness out of this. But I'm going to try something else. I'm going to switch over to the B output. But I'm also going to do this. Oops, wrong cable. I'm trying to find a cable. Oh, come on. Good. This cable. I'm going to go output A into B. Now we got you can hear a little sonicness. I'm doing a little filtering almost. I would love for caffeine to be CV controllable. Put that on drive again. Because if you see, when I move this, I'm getting an interesting flutter, but I have to do it manually. And the limiter is kicked in again. And you can see it clipping across the magenta line. So that's what it does with an audio signal. Now, obviously, if I had a stereo audio signal, it would be probably a little more interesting. He also says, definitely try it with an LFO. So we'll do that. Let's see. Take my LFO here. There we go. Okay, we're back on track. So there's a triangle wave, tracking pretty closely. Let me change the speed of that LFO. Now let me try and caffeinate that up. It amplifies it, which is nice. Now let's do some multiplication. I mean, the audio doesn't matter, even though it's an interesting transition of the LFO to audio tones. I'm going to go to limit it. I'll go to limit it. So it dropped it down some. I'm going to see, look at the waveform now. That's very interesting. Take it back out and it goes back to the triangle wave. But look how it modifies that waveform. We go to my times 5. Again, it's almost compressing it. I'm going to change the speed on that LFO. Let me try limiting that. I am limiting that. Let me try driving it. Okay, so you can see it's clipping now. When I took the limiter off at +5, and then when I take it up to +21, it clips it really strongly. Let me go to drive. And again, that gives it that interesting. It's converting a triangle wave into a sine wave. Let me put this into my square wave. So all that's very interesting. You can see what it does for a LFO or slower signal, compresses it. What else do I want to do here? Let me do the same thing I did a minute ago, if I can get my cables correct. I'll take the A output, put it in B. So I don't see much difference there. But that's what I mean, you can change your waveform rather surprisingly with this. So that's it. It's got a little bit of drive, even though I would like some CV control. I'd love to be able to change caffeine from an LFO. And you can see what happens when you put an LFO through it. You get some interesting wave shapes. And as we saw, the module is very simple to build. It would be a great first module to build and put into use. And it does some interesting things. And I hope you enjoyed the video.